Hello guys, in this video I'm trying to survive 100 days on a giant island. During this journey I fought strong mobs, explored a creepy abandoned metro and tested a teleportation mode to move around the island faster. It was fun, a bit scary at times, but definitely exciting. I spawned in a jungle and started looking around. I have to say this isn't really an island, more like a bunch of cliffs connected to other continents. But I liked this seed, so I decided to stick with it. There were cliffs all around, so I knew I wouldn't have any trouble with iron ore. That's a relief. First, I decided to explore the area, and right behind the cliffs I spotted a fjord. And in that fjord there was a huge pirate ship. I decided I would raid it a little later. I climbed to the very top of the mountain to get a good view of the whole area. The mountains were so huge that by the time I circled them it was already night. Of course, I didn't have a bed, so I dug myself a little cave to spend the night. I also mined a few logs, just to keep myself busy. The next day I decided to raid the pirate ship, but at that moment I had no idea how strong the mobs would be. As you already seen, on the second day of my survival I managed to die twice. I didn't expect to see skeletons riding dolphins, and even more so, I didn't expect them to be that strong. I don't recommend raiding such ships in hardcore mode during the early stage of survival. Inside the ship there were a few rooms with skeleton spawners. The problem was I couldn't find the spawner for about 10 minutes because I didn't realize where it was, and eventually I figured out that it was right behind a chest, which was blocking my view. Raiding the ship was pretty tough. It took me the whole day just to loot the chest in the cabin. I didn't dare to go up to the deck right then, so I left the ship. Overall, the loot wasn't very exciting, usually just a bit of iron, wood and coal. After leaving the ship, I started looking for a place to sleep. While searching for a good cave, I noticed that most of the caves in this biome were overgrown, which means that certain ores will be much easier to find. Additionally, having access to these caves also gave me access to clay, which I could later trade with villagers. After finding the first suitable cave, I went to sleep, and in the morning headed up the mountain to start building my house. On the way, I gathered wood, which I decided to use to make myself a cozy little house. I didn't focus too much on the design, just like always. I mostly wanted the house to be practical, but I also tried to make it comfortable. Let me know what you think about it in the comments. After finishing the house, I built myself a pier and decided to test out a mod that makes fishing more realistic. Now, when you catch a fish, it's alive, and you either have to kill it or wait until it suffocates on its own. I like the mod, but I don't recommend standing too close to the water, because sometimes the fish can break free and fall back into the water. After a bit of fishing, I went into the cave to look for lava, so I could build a portal to the Nether. I wanted to dig a tunnel because I thought I would eventually make a nice passage to the mine from my house. I spawned in some completely nowhere, but surprisingly I quickly found another fortress. Running to the blaze spawners, I started slowly building around them and gathering blaze rolls. Overall everything was fine, but I had very little food, so I had to be careful. I had big problems with food supplies, so after returning to the overworld, I decided to make myself a farm. But spoiler alert, since I'm too dumb, I made it not where it was practical, but where it would look cool. Of course, I spent most of my time near the house, and the farm chunk just refused to load, and as you might guess, all the wheat grew so slowly that I had to find food in other ways. I decided to go back and finish off the pirates on the ship after building my farm. Just look at how much time I wasted trying to kill this skeleton. When I got on the deck, I realized the skeletons were frozen in place, so they weren't too hard to kill, although one of them did manage to throw me overboard. Then I started building stairs to my house, because climbing those cliffs every time took forever. The stairs weren't exactly the most practical, more like decoration, but you know what? Still faster than struggling up those cursed rocks every time. While I was building the stairs, some raider decided to drop by for a friendly visit. Such lovely guest really warmed my heart. On top of that, I kept getting distracted looking for food and mining an endless amount of cobblestone. In the end, the stage took me way longer than I expected. It was time to go hunting for ender pearls. These days weren't too exciting, except for the part where I almost died multiple times. After gathering enough pearls, I set off to find the end portal, and along the way I stumbled upon this interesting structure. It kind of reminded me of Japanese buildings, really well designed and beautiful. Entering it was pretty terrifying, because I had a feeling there might be some tough mobs inside, just like with the pirates. But you know, curiosity won. The first spawner had skeletons riding frogs. Thankfully, they weren't too strong, but right after them, a ghost came at me, and that thing was way harder to take down. Since I had sleep in the structure I looted before finding the end portal, I respawned there after defeating the dragon. So I had to spend some time making my way back home. To avoid running back and forth to the end portal every time, I built myself some teleportation portals. This was another mod I used in this video. It lets you place portals anywhere in your world and travel between them. But to build one, you need a lot of iron and a special generator to keep it running. So it's both fun and balanced without making survival too easy. Over the next few days I explored the end, hunting for treasure and shulkers. I also ventured into an ancient city, where I had a few friendly encounters with some wardens. After that I focused on fixing up the area around my house. I finally gave in and made a small farm nearby because I was sick of constantly searching for food. I also planted some sugar cane so I could craft fireworks for my Elytra adventure. While flying through the end, I discovered two new structures. One of them was this floating ship you see now. Looting it was a nightmare because there were spawners at every turn. Unlike the pirate ship, this one had much better loot. The second structure was massive, and the mobs inside were so strong that even my diamond armor didn't help much. To be honest, I didn't expect the mobs in the structure to be that strong. You saw it yourself. One arrow was enough to wipe out all my health. On one hand, I was upset about dying, but on the other, structure like this make Minecraft way more exciting. It wouldn't be nearly as fun if every structure was super easy to loot. Getting my stuff back was really hard, because there were so many spawners in that room, but eventually I managed to grab everything, and things would have been fine if it weren't for one little thing. From the top floor, charge creepers jumped on me, and I have no idea why, but after my death all my main shulker box disappeared. These shulkers had all my best gear, along with some good loot I grabbed from the flying ship. Losing those shulkers meant losing everything. Now I had no level, no good armor, and even my bow was gone. It was a pretty tough moment, but this wasn't the time to give up. I tried to lose the structure with what I had and at least get a look at it to understand what might be waiting for me. Turns out the skeletons weren't the only tough mobs around here. I realized that looting all the chests this time was going to be very hard, and that was confirmed by another death of mine. At that point I realized it was better to grab what was left and head back home. Now I decided to level up again and eventually get my revenge on these creatures. I started building an Enderman farm. In my opinion, it's probably the most efficient experience farm. This time I didn't bother with the design or the blocks I was using. My goal was to get my revenge on these creatures as quickly as possible, so I built the farm as fast as I could. I spent almost half a stack of golden apples and a bunch of wood to spawn the endermite, and about 5 stacks of ender pearls, but it still didn't spawn. I had to go back home again to grab more food, and after a few more tries, it finally appeared. To avoid running back home all the time, I as usual built an enchanting spot at the enderman farm. However, it didn't take long before I noticed that the items and books were being enchanting with very weak enchantments. At first, I thought I was just unlucky, but when this kept happening for a while, I realized something was wrong. I solved for a long time, but couldn't figure out what the problem was. To avoid wasting time, I decided to at least get some decent books from the villagers, so I went off to mine clay. This is where the overgrown caves came in handy, as I could gather a lot of clay. At least that was something to cheer me up. At that moment, I realized that to enchant items, I only needed to spend 21 experience, and that's when I started to figure out the main problem. Turned out that the issue was that the carpet was blocking the enchanting table from gathering experience from the lower row of shelves. This was probably the biggest fail in this video. By the way, I placed the carpet there to prevent endermen from spawning. After that, I decided to hit the remains of the bastion, hoping to find some netherite ingots. The bastion was located not far from my portal, so it didn't take much time. After returning to the overworld, I had to fight a raid camp I spotted while searching for sand around the world. The loot wasn't anything special, but I was happy to find a few god horns. Near their camp there was an abandoned subway, and I couldn't resist going down, because I was genuinely curious about what it would look like. At that time I had no idea what awaited me down there.
All aboard for the New Horizons!
In this abandoned subway there were a lot of cool rooms. The one with the tanks was absolutely amazing. I really enjoyed this underground structure. The chests usually contained iron and coal, and sometimes diamond. The mobs here were pretty strong, so it's better to come prepared with good gear before visiting. Eventually I realized I wasn't on the lowest floor, but after descending I noticed that the rooms were the same, so I didn't waste any more time and headed back home. Come on guys, you didn't think I wouldn't die, right? The room where I died was the last one I looted in the structure, so after collecting all my stuff, I returned home with a full set of new loot. Even though the structure was tough to raid, it had its rewards, like netherite scraps and even a full netherite ingot in the room where I died. After upgrading a few of my tools, I spent the last 10 days improving the area. I upgraded the farm, leveled the plot and built a lava farm. That's all for this video. Thanks to everyone who stuck around till the end. Feel free to leave your thoughts and suggestions in the comments. This was your Naming. See you next time.